Life's too short for tradition. Everybody's too busy, and nobody has time for anything. And certainly we don't have any time for tradition. To many of us, tradition is actually an annoyance. It's like an elderly uncle we have to respect, but who we have no patience for his long, meandering stories. And today it's just, we're too busy. Life's too short. Remarkably, this particular sentiment, that life's too short for tradition, is actually found going back thousands of years to the Torah, where we're told about the story of Jacob and Esau, Yaakov and Esav. And they're twins, and Esau is the older brother. And Yaakov, the younger brother, wants to be able to buy the right of the firstborn, the birthright. And so one day Esav comes in from the fields, and Esav wants a pot of lentils that Yaakov has been cooking. And Yaakov says, fine, we'll make a deal. Give me the right of the firstborn, and I'll give you a pot of lentils. And Esav's response is telling. Esav says, Hinei anochi alech lamut, lama ze li bechora. I'm about to die anyway. My life is flashing by me. I'm incredibly busy. Why would I need a birthright? Why would I, a busy guy, need something spiritual, like being the elder statesman of the family, being the priest of the family? Who needs birthrights? Life is way too short for birthrights. And so, Esav sells his birthright for a pot of lentils. He says, yes, life's too short for birthrights and too short for traditions. Now, Esav's thinking would be perfect for the 21st century. But by the way, Esav is rejected. And that's precisely why he's rejected. He shows no interest in birthrights. He shows no interest in traditions. He might be a nice guy. He might be a wonderful and very caring and warm man. But he doesn't have the proper respect for tradition. And if he doesn't care about his birthright, you can't expect him to be able to pass it on to his children. And sadly, when we lose our traditions, we end up losing something very precious. You know, I spoke a couple of weeks ago about the loss of institutional thinking, of things like the banker's code. You know, once upon a time, bankers, teachers, athletes, all had to follow a set of rules. And bankers had a certain way of doing business. This was their traditions. But just recently, in the last couple of years, people said, well, these traditions, they're too stodgy. They hold us back. And because people threw the banker's code out of the window, because these traditions were rejected, you have things like AIG and Lehman Brothers and unsecured and subprime mortgages, which ended up bringing the country to the brink of a Great Depression. This is what happens when you reject traditions, when you forget about where you come from. And what's really sad is that there are so many Jews who think more like Esav than they do like Yaakov. They think, I just don't have the time for tradition. Tradition, yeah, I respect tradition, I respect it. I don't have the time for it. Life's way too short. Who has time for Shabbat and the holidays? And so we tell Grandpa, when he's sitting and mumbling all of that Hebrew at the Seder, that he better speed it up because we got to watch the hockey game. The playoffs are on. Or on Friday night, we tell everybody we got to speed through Friday night dinner because we have to go out clubbing or we have to go out and see the movies. And these traditions, the traditions of Shabbat, the traditions of the holidays, they get thrown out the window. And just like Esav, for many Jews, Jewish tradition is not worth a pot of beans. But maybe it's time for a change. Maybe it's time to spend Friday night with the family. Maybe it's time to open up Jewish texts and seek some inspiration. Maybe we need to open up our hearts and actually roll up our sleeves and help people in need. Maybe we need to reclaim these traditions that built families, inspired communities, and sustained the Jewish tradition for centuries. It's time for Jews to start thinking like Yaakov. It's time for Jews to reclaim their birthright.